Hello, and welcome to today's video. Today, I want to talk to you about somatic-based emotional healing modalities. And I want to share my experience with them and why I find them to be so much more effective for, honestly, the majority of people that I speak with. So if you click this video, maybe you already know what this is, but I'm just going to give you a really quick 30-second power summary of what are somatic-based healing modalities. So this is a way that we can work on our emotions. So we can work on trying to address any emotional root cause that could be impacting us in any way in life. This could be causing health problems. This can cause financial issues. This can show up as problems in relationships. But if you've talked about these problems, if you've tried hypnotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, these are much more common types of therapy. And it's great that we live in a world now where therapy is actually more of a common thing. But I find that sometimes they don't hit, It's just like you're talking about your problems over and over again, and it doesn't actually change anything. And the reason you're doing this generally is because you actually want some kind of outcome. If you were happy with your life, if you had lots of friends, you had lots of money, you had great health, you probably wouldn't be going to therapy. Some people do because they want to be even better versions of themselves. And if that's you, then amazing. All power to you. But usually people end up going to therapy because they want to kind of solve a problem, or they want to fix something, or they want to find resolution about something. And I've found personally, the reason that I've done this is I'm very interested in self-development. I also have a strong connection with my body. It didn't start like this. I built this through all of the somatic practices that I've done over the years. But I always found that cognitively in my mind, I didn't feel depressed. I didn't feel anxious. I wasn't aware of any cognitive, limiting beliefs. I've struggled with things like eating disorders, chronic pain. I've had lots of different issues, and they never felt cognitive. There was never a mental layer to it at the forefront. It always felt more like I was receiving the input about this from my body. So for example, with the eating disorder, I would eat food and I would have a physical reaction with chemical fluctuations and physical symptoms inside my physical body. It was not a cognitive thing. And obviously, chronic pain, you will experience this physically inside your body. And if you're potentially somebody like me, where you think maybe there is some kind of emotional, some cognitive, some mindset, or something that is affecting the outcome that you're trying to get, whether that's your health, relationships, money, whatever it is, and you feel like you've talked about it a lot, you're not making traction, nothing's really changing, trying a somatic orientated modality could be a really nice idea. So the reason I find these to be so effective is we're kind of tackling the problem in a different way. A lot of the time with these more conventional therapies where we're working more cognitively, we're talking about how we think we feel and how we think about problems and what we think about them. Instead, we're going in and we're just simply feeling what's present inside of the body. We're feeling the physical sensations that are happening in the body. And we don't have to create a story. We don't have to attach these physical sensations to something. We don't have to say, oh, this shoulder pain is because I don't know how to be a good man, or because of what my dad did to me, or whatever it is. We don't have to necessarily attach a story to it. Sometimes we just need to feel that full experience through the body, and just allowing that to be felt means it can go. And then we don't have to have the pain, or we don't have to have the blockage anymore. But sometimes there is a deeper meaning. There's a deeper insight that is connected to whatever is physically stored in the body. And by doing these practices, we actually can kind of shake them out of the body in a very gentle way. We kind of disturb them out of that physical tissue, and we can turn them back into thoughts and emotions and feelings again, which can be really nice because you can work with them again. When they're stuck in your body, it's very hard. If you are experiencing sadness, but you experience that sadness as a lack of physical energy, it can be very hard to work with that, because what are you supposed to do with it? You just feel tired. That's not a very useful way to work with the sadness. If we can turn the sadness back into a feeling, back into an emotion, back into something that we can associate thoughts to, we can understand, why are we sad? We can understand, what's the sadness trying to teach me? What's it trying to tell me? What's it trying to show me? And we can also learn, how is this sadness trying to affect my behavior? And this way, we can integrate the emotion back into our life. We can bring it back in, and it can become a part of us, instead of being something that's kind of squashed and pushed and stuck in our body and causing all of those problems that it can cause. But one common theme that I've noticed is, and I've kind of done it a little bit here, I've talked about sadness, I've talked about depression, I've talked about a lot of negative emotional experiences. And we think often that these are the things that are pushed down, and these are the traumas that we have to work through. And it's very often actually the opposite. And this is an idea I'd really encourage you, I'd really like you to explore. which is that often it's our positive aspects, it's the beautiful parts, the loving parts, the powerful and strong parts of ourselves that we've become disconnected from. And we need these parts to get what we want out of life. You need to be confident if you're going to ask for a raise, if you're going to start your own business or go for that career that you want. You need to be loving and caring if you want to be a really great parent. And that's what some people really, really want out of their life. So often there are actually these very positive, these joyful, powerful, light aspects of us that we're out of touch with. And our life is just sadness, and it's just pain, and it's just depression. We practice these. We're good at these. These are not the parts we need to practice. We need to practice pleasure. We need to practice love. We need to practice these positive experiences again. And it can feel kind of invalidating to try to find these when, maybe you're super stressed because you've got bills to pay. Maybe someone in the family died and you're in grieving, and there's always something going on. It always feels like there's never a good time to do this because life is very intense a lot of the time. There can be a lot happening. It's very fast. And that's, in a way, the beauty of somatic modalities. They really are an invitation to simply slow down and to observe what wants to come up. And we work with it. We feel it, not just as an emotion, but as a felt physical sensation. And we learn what it has to teach us. So one reason I find this modality also to be in some ways superior to more of these cognitive approaches is sometimes we can get storage attached to things. Sometimes we can become very cognitive about things. I personally, and almost all of this I'm sharing from personal experience, I'm very good at intellectualizing the way that I feel so that I can avoid actually feeling it. And as you can imagine, talking about things is an intellectualization process. So I don't get very far in talk therapies because I'm actually using the talking to bypass the feeling. Whereas when you are using a somatic modality, you are very intimately and deeply describing and experiencing the felt sense that you have inside of your body. This way, we're now using our ability to talk and to communicate and our vocabulary actually in a way to help us feel instead of bypassing us feeling. So maybe you're at the point in the video now where you're thinking, oh, this sounds like me, I really want to do it. I really want to try it. Maybe you already know about somatic modalities and you're just thinking, what am I supposed to do with this? How do I actually start? Where do I go with this? It sounds right, but what am I supposed to do? So it is possible to do some of this by yourself, but I would strongly encourage you to try and do this with a practitioner. There are some different angles that you could take. You could look for something like a somatic experiencing therapist. So this is like a true therapist that will have some kind of formal training or education with different techniques and understandings that will be able to help you through feeling your inner world, help you through these physical sensations that you're experiencing. This is one way. Another way would be to try to recruit some friends or family. Generally speaking, it would be really good to do this with people that you are intimate with, but don't live with. And it's tricky to say, but I would say ideally you don't really have trauma with them. This can be really difficult because a lot of the time the traumas that are holding us back the most are the traumas that we can't even see, that we're not even aware are there. I was carrying some heavy trauma, some heavy splits inside myself, inside of my personality, whilst I was living with people that I felt a lot of love for and I felt loved by. And it was very difficult to become aware that actually those relationships were some of the most deepest and systemic issues that were affecting my ability to really be myself and be healthy and to be abundant and be my best version. So this is why having an external practitioner could be really, really helpful. Or you could look for somebody that does something similar to what I do. So whilst I am not a therapist, I have no formal training, I've never kind of like gone to school or paid money to be taught how to be a facilitator, I have been to a lot of sessions myself. I personally probably done roughly 300 hours of somatic experiencing therapy. And this is something that I live and breathe. This weekend went to a men's retreat, which was a really, really great experience. This is the second men's retreat that I've been to. This was really cool because the theme of this one was the embodied man, and it was run by a somatic counselor. So this is an interesting kind of middle ground where this is not a somatic therapist where you're like studied for multiple years and have this high level qualification, but there's also no training. It's kind of a middle point, which was quite nice. But also, in my opinion, the thing that really makes the difference when working with a practitioner is working with someone that lives and breathes it. It's very easy to feel when you're talking to an unembodied somatic experiencing practitioner, that you can feel they're teaching it, they're guiding you, but they're not embodied inside themselves. So everybody wants something that's a little bit different. Some people like to have the qualification, and if that's you, look for something like a somatic experiencing practitioner or a somatic counselor or something. Generally, keyword is somatic. You've got somatic in there somewhere. If you're just dipping your toe in and maybe you want to try this with some friends and family, try and find somebody that's interested in this. Try and find somebody that's read some books on this or that has some experience. That could be really nice. And if you wanted to give this a shot with me, somatics are incorporated into a part of the work I do that I call the Illumina Method. So the idea behind this is kind of in the name, is to illuminate, is to help to bring out what is kind of hidden in the darkness. The somatics are a very large component. I would say they are foundational component, because a lot of this stuff that's hidden in the dark, a lot of our shadow, a lot of the things that we really need to see and to feel, they're residing in the body somewhere. And I've found this is the easiest way to get to them and the easiest way to make meaningful progress on them. But this Illumina method also encompasses some other aspects, including things like shadow work, which is where we are really looking at observing your behaviors, observing your beliefs. It is a little bit more cognitive, but once we have developed your skill set a little bit in regard to somatics, there's this amazing process that happens where we flow in and out of the felt experience inside of the body and the cognitive realm, the thoughts, the beliefs, the patterns, and you just flow and you ebb and you flow and you ebb and you're going in and out. And it's, in my opinion, it feels like you are riding the waves of consciousness. You are entering different states of your experience. Some of this is felt through the body. Some of this is observed in behaviors and patterns. Obviously, I, as a facilitator, are there to help you to see these things and to work through these things. And we can also incorporate many other aspects as well. For example, I found polarity. I did a video on polarity a while back. Polarity has been a profoundly helpful angle to observe the world and to work into my relationships. That has provided so much satisfaction and so much relief in understanding who I am and how I fit into the world. So if you would like to explore any of these things with me, I would be delighted to do that. You can send me an email, support@williamdickinson.co.uk. I will tell you now, I'm a little bit pricey on this. So if you're looking for a budget option, I'm probably not the right guy. If you feel a strong connection with me and these sound like things you'd like to explore, I would really love to do that with you. But wherever you go with this, I would definitely encourage you to start with the body first. Start on this somatic level, because in my experience, this is the foundation that everything is built upon. I have worked with energy healers, I've worked with acupuncturists, I've been to chiropractors and osteopaths, and every single time I have a physical, like a bodywork session, everything that I've learned about somatics comes into play. I can be having some fascia work done on my neck, maybe it's like craniosacral therapy, or I'm having some acupuncture needles put. I can feel shifts in my physical body. I can feel emotions move. I can feel things change. This is literally like a universal skill set that once you've developed, it is applicable to everything. You can apply it to every other modality that you have. And this is a real life skill set as well. I would love to share like 2 small stories with you of experiences that I've had with clients and how this has affected their life. So I'm obviously going to use fake names. We're going to start with a lady called Jay. So Jay had a rollerblading accident. She fell and kind of like messed up her knee. Her knee was really uncomfortable to walk on. She was seeing an osteopath or a practitioner, like hands-on, to work on that. And there was recovery, but there was a lingering sense of pain and discomfort that seemed like it was resistant to being resolved just through these physical interventions. So we did one of these somatic oriented sessions and we felt through the experience that was happening inside of the knee. And what was really fascinating was that the pain that was lingering there, this dysfunctional state that was lingering there, was actually caused by a trapped emotion. And maybe you've heard about the fascia before. The fascia is an extremely important part of healing the nervous system, of flexibility, of all connective tissue in your body. So this includes tendons and ligaments, skin, the connection between organs. It's the fundamental tissue that connects every single thing in the whole body, and it's connected to everything all at the same time. So it's this interconnectedness. And this is also a place where we store a lot of trauma, both physically in terms of as scar tissue, as adhesions, as these kind of structural braces that can form around tissue damage, but also as trauma. This is where we hold a lot of the emotional trauma, these emotional felt experiences. This is kind of how these somatic modalities work, because we're working on the physical tissues to kind of shake. When I say shake, it's very general. We're kind of trying to disturb these emotions to come back into an emotional energetic state. So we did this session, we were feeling through these felt sensations in the knee, and what we came to realize was, as she fell, she was very scared and felt very ashamed and very embarrassed. And when she fell, she stood up immediately to try to avoid having everybody looking at her and to make a big deal out of it. And this is basically like a shock response. And when we go into a shock response, we don't have time for the nervous system to process through that experience. And then it just gets stored. It just gets stuck inside of the tissue. And it's just because we simply didn't have enough time to process through that felt experience, to feel through those emotions. And the session allowed her to do that. We felt through the shame, and we felt that transmute from a sensation in the knee. It moves up and comes into the gut. And it's this kind of like this like visceral, like cringe, like everyone's looking at me and I did a stupid thing. And like, I know you know what that feels like, that kind of shame, that cringe feeling. And it was transmuting out of the knee, coming up into the gut, and we could feel this transformation happening. Then there was the fear. And with the fear, the body went into very much like a freeze, kind of like depersonalized state. So the whole body was frozen, like rigid. And I could feel, like, as she was talking to me, I could feel how stiff the hot, like all these other areas of her body is. And this is very normal. This is a survival response. This is where the energy becomes essentially like paralyzed, frozen. And the way that we actually break free from that freeze response is to remain in it. And it begins to melt. It begins to thaw by itself without any conscious effort. We don't have to try to melt it. We just need to be with it. We just need to be present with it. And as we did this, we went through several different things. I'll spare you some details because obviously we've gone quite a lot already. But eventually we got to the point where she said, oh, my knee, it feels like lubricated. It's moving again. And it felt okay. And she sent me a message about a week or 10 days after that session. And she said, the pain in my knee is completely gone. It's 100% resolved. Now, I'm not saying that this is just because the emotional stuff. She had a good physical support team. She was taking care of herself. There's more that goes into it than just this. But I can confidently say, if we didn't do this, those experiences emotionally would have been stuck in those tissues, and the fascia would have been holding it tight and holding it out of a healing space, holding it almost like as if you have like a wound, like you have a scratch. I actually have a little cut here. So it's like, imagine you have this little cut, and it's like you're holding it open. You're stopping it from being able to heal. That's essentially what the fascia is doing when it's holding that trauma. It stops the physical healing from taking place. Then you have physical pain. You can have chronic pain, and it's real pain, but it's not caused by a physical thing. The root is the emotion that's holding the body out of that healing state. Another example would be a lady. We will call her B. So B had this experience where she had a feeling like a trigger point in her back. So think left shoulder blade, kind of like at the bottom, you know, that bit where it gets kind of really tight, and it's really annoying, and it's in such an uncomfortable spot, and and it's just annoying, you know, and you can lay down and it's just annoying, right? She felt this contractor, this trigger point. We felt into this, and what began to happen is it began to like kind of spread out, began to come out almost like a ripple, like a wave. And it came up, and it got to the point where it reached the neck, and it became blocked. And there was this feeling of this darkness, this very ominous kind of feeling, this dark feeling here. And this sensation was connected up to this. So we felt through this, and B felt like she couldn't breathe. She felt like she was felt like being strangled, very uncomfortable, as you can imagine, a lot of distress. And we just observed, we just watched it. So it's like, okay, you're feeling distressed. How do you know? She would say, my breathing is coming fast, but I feel like I can't breathe. And my body is getting really tight and really rigid. And I feel like my eyes want to like look around at things, even though her eyes were closed in this exercise. And she's like, I want to look for the danger. I want to find the threat. She was sharing all of these physical things that were happening inside her body. And we just rode through it. It's almost like we were surfing a wave. We just felt through this experience, and things began to settle. And this took a long time. I'm summarizing. This was like an 1.5 hour process of going through these different waves of different felt experiences. And this came several times, this not being able to breathe. This came up one wave, and then it calmed down, and then another wave, and then it calmed down, and then a third wave that was even bigger, and then it came down, and then that was it. So this took time. This is a felt through experience. I'm paraphrasing very quickly here for you. And we then did a check-in at the end and we felt through the body. And I said, how is the neck? Feels fine. In fact, I feel like I can breathe better than I've ever been able to breathe. And how is the shoulder? Oh, yeah, didn't even notice anything. Feels completely fine. And this just gives you a really kind of clear example of there's a physical pain. There is a tension, a discomfort, a physically felt sensation. There is no depression. There is no anxiety. There is no cognitive aspect to this. It's purely a felt physical sensation inside of the body in both cases, both in the back and also in the knee. And when we take the time, we create the space for whatever it is that's been held in those physical tissues to relax and to turn back into emotions and thoughts and energy, the tissues soften so the pain can dissipate, the discomfort can dissipate, and we can have access to those feelings and emotions that we can then feel through and experience, almost like to kind of digest them. It's like we process through them and then we can let them go. And that's what's supposed to happen, so that we can learn how do we feel through things, what are we supposed to do with these sensations, with these experiences, what do we do with them, how do we process this information, and create a space, an environment that allows us to do that. And these are all skills that we innately have. These are things that are viscerally, fundamentally a part of us, but they can be underdeveloped. And this often happens due to childhood trauma or to different things that can happen to us throughout our life. But essentially the goal is to train these skills and then to create a space and an environment where the body feels safe and comfortable to get to work and use these tools. And you literally just watch, you simply observe. There is no exerting of the mind as there is in a lot of other modalities. I've always found that my mind just gets in the way. It doesn't help me with healing the trauma. I need to do this as a felt experience through the body. So this is what I do. This is what I found to be really helpful. And maybe if you're somebody that's dealing with some chronic health problems, or you've been struggling with the same problem over and over again, maybe you feel self-conscious and you don't know why, and you've talked about it a lot, you've done a lot of different therapies and it just doesn't help. Maybe you have some kind of eating disorder. Maybe you've struggled with anxiety and depression. Maybe there even is some kind of mental or emotional expression of this, but the conventional modalities haven't provided you much of a solution. Try somatics instead, because they really, really helped me. I basically built a huge portion of the work that I do in this Illumina method around this somatic component, because for me, it was so profoundly helpful. And I tried the CBT, I tried hypnotherapy, I tried all of these different logical and more kind of standard and cognitive approaches, and they just didn't really help that much. Some of them didn't really do anything at all. And this really, I would say that this was one of the things that was a turning point in my recovery, because ultimately your body is what heals you. And if your body is holding itself in a state where it's incapable of healing itself, you're never going to heal. So you have to give your body what it needs, get back into that place where it can heal itself, because it's the only thing that does that. So this is physical healing, chronic disease, chronic pain. This is mental, emotional. This is relationships, money, whatever it is. It all comes back to your body. It all comes back to your nervous system, and it all comes back to your fascia. And somatic modalities that cover all of these bases, which is why they seem to be so effective. So I would really love to hear, what do you think about this? Have you experimented with some somatic modalities before? And if so, let me know. I've had great results, but maybe you found them kind of not so good. I'd really love to hear. And also let me know if you think this is something you're going to try. If you're going to try and do it by yourself or with a loved one or somebody close to you. Maybe you've got a supportive spouse. That could be a really nice way to do it. Maybe you're going to try and find a somatic experiencing practitioner, or maybe you want to give this a shot with me. If so, again, shoot me an email, support@williamdickinson.co.uk, and I'll be really happy to give you a hand with it. But that's everything for me today. Hope you found it really interesting and helpful. And if you have any questions, make sure you leave them for me below. Take care. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.